Good evening, everybody. And the first meeting of this year, and it came real early in the month too. Okay, we call the monthly meeting of the Board of the San Carlos Estates Water Control District to order. It is January 16th, 2023, and the quorum is present. So, Chairman Jim Bradford, Vice Chair Jim Nazzo, Supervisor John Salucci, Secretary Treasurer Chris Lawson, Attorney Richard Pringle, Engineer Ron Edenfield, and we have 13 visitors. Thank you very much for coming this evening. Always glad to have you all. Okay, we're going to put the engineer's report up.
Very good. Thank you. We'll currently have 9 open applications under review, various stages. We did receive 1 since the last meeting, and we have finalized out 2. We almost made it 3 today. They failed. And we conducted 8 inspections during that period as well. Just for the board's information, we'll be attending a webinar from the FDEP regarding the MS4, which I think we'll talk about later, come the 25th of this month. And I brought to you a number of right-of-way agreements for signature by the board. That is several that are currently in review, plus some that have been in review and been approved. A couple of those are actually ones that were approved prior to being on board.
Right on.
We're just, as a matter of housekeeping, getting everyone that we can.
I just need to
execute that agreement. And that's the engineer's report for the moment.
Okay. Well, I'm the one who likes to talk, and I got caught off guard this evening. I was expecting Peter to be here and fill you in on all the stuff from FEMA that we've done. We are currently on a track. We were the first to turn in our application to FEMA, which put us in a pretty good light with them. We've been working with Dale from FEMA every week. We have meetings now on Wednesdays. They've been on Fridays, which normally take about a half a day of our time every time we meet. And Peter, who is taking charge of the FEMA stuff for us, has been right on target, and he's keeping all of the reports and things in place. He's keeping all the monies and everything that we're spending and staying in contact with everybody he's supposed to do to make sure that we are there. We have finished all the applications and the weigh-ins and everything for the garbage and the debris that we had hauled away. And we're right now putting that together. Once we get it together, we're going to send in our first phase for the FEMA reimbursements. We don't know what we're getting. We don't know how long it'll take. But we did put in for a substantial amount of money. And we've got a whole lot of phases, which will probably go through this whole year. You'll hear us talking about. Next thing that is on our list of things that we have put in for is the gate replacement up here, whereas when the hurricane occurred, we had left the gates open so you guys could get in and out. Mechanically, nobody ever told us we should have taken down the arms out of the holders, and of which the wind managed to crack one of the transmissions, and which then required that whole unit to be replaced. We don't know internally what damage the other unit may have done, so we put it in for FEMA to be replaced. By the way, Pelican Landing, Bonita Bay, and other subdivisions around us are using the same units. Mike is here, who's been taking this bull by the horns on the gates. I'm going to give him a moment to fill you in on what the gates are and what they're like, what you're going to expect, and when we might get them. We are putting in we're giving them the deposit tomorrow. And he's going to be he doesn't know it yet. If he'll listen, he's going to be hand carrying it down. Now it's your turn.
Oh, okay. Good afternoon. I'm Mike Bradford, and I've been working with this. So, we put in requested a number of bids, and 2 companies showed up to bid. One was Action and the other one was Gatekeeper. Gatekeeper gave us a bid of somewhere around $2,900, real close, lower than Action. Both these companies have been in business for over 20 years, So for that reason, it's really a toss-up to which one, other than, of course, it's a much better price. And the system looks really complete. All the safety equipment required is in here, and both bids require that. And LiftMaster is the gate that we currently have, and it'll be replaced with a similar system. So we should be in good shape for a while.
The new gates are going to be lighted with what colors?
Correct. And of course, it'll be a red and green. So now
There's a question behind
I have one question. Are our clickers still going to work? You
Yes.
said LiftMaster is not going to have it
well,
anymore?
only yours isn't working. Everybody else is
Mine never works. So
Oh, okay. Actually, I don't know what's going on with yours. There for a while, and it took us quite a while. We have the fire and emergencies have a wire or an antenna coming up, and we also have an antenna coming up, which we didn't realize. And our antenna was broken off, so every time you got close to it, you could hardly get it to work. Once we discovered that, and the new antenna was put up, it became quite a bit easier coming in to hit the remote, and it would come up.
Okay, so our clickers that we have now, we don't have to spend another $50 to buy another one. I'm
No.
3 in.
it. Only you.
I'm 3 in so far.
3 in, so you're no problem as far as these. As far as these gentlemen said, they can match them up. So all of our clickers should just continue as they
Okay,
always do.
we'll see.
And then and for your magic clicker that doesn't work, I can't tell you.
Can you make it work again?
We might do some things to make that work.
All right, good deal.
But other than that, we've got a good system. It looks like both companies, we're about, from the time we order, we're possibly, and Gatekeeper said possibly earlier, but we're looking at about 4 weeks before.
From when they get money tomorrow, deposit 4 weeks thereafter.
Yes.
Correct. That's what.
So by March they should be in, hopefully.
I would hope so.
And they're going to be illuminated gates.
Illuminated gates, I think they should be pretty awesome because the other communities have those. And then, so yeah, hopefully by March we'll have our gates back and eliminate some of the traffic that's coming
So it's
around.
just wide open now.
Yeah, there's no other
I never
choice.
thought that.
You know, unless you get a guard on there.
Yeah, I'm retired.
Sure, you could volunteer.
The pay is not.
Okay, I got 2 things for the board that I would like to add to that. Is that number one, I would like to get some signs made up, put out by the gates, letting our citizens in the community know what's going on, when they can expect the new gates to be put up.
Yes.
Number 2 on it is that there is a optional maintenance agreement in here of about $600 a year where they service the gates 4 times a year. And I would like to, when we get them in, I would like us to move forward with making that part of them so that they come out and take care of that. So that's not something we're going to deal with tonight, and we will take care of getting the deposit for tomorrow. So that's, any questions about that?
Darlene, that was one of the things that Mike was very, and the board was very concerned about, the existing remotes working with the new units. So they were very careful in making sure that was a topic they covered.
Okay, because I've got 2 now, and 1 I gave back to you.
Yeah.
Not 1, so.
I told her to give you the bad one.
You did good.
So
Jim, is this half or is this just the 5,000? Because
Pardon?
half is
50%.
50%.
it's supposed to be 50%, but I
Okay.
think compared to that number, 5,000 is pretty close. Or give them
Uh,
5,000 and that extra.
$25.
Yeah, give them that, and then we only owe them $5,000. Okay.
So, Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
I don't recall the board previously approving the award, did they?
The what?
Did the board previously approve the
They
award?
gave
They gave me
Jim
permission
permission
purchase them when
to
we
do
had
that.
To make that, okay. All right. So we don't need any board action,
No.
so we don't need to add anything to the agenda.
No, we had valid bids, and then we said approve for Jim to pick
Okay.
the best
All
one.
right. So that's all done.
Do you
Okay.
need to approve the repair, the maintenance on it though?
We're not doing that tonight. We'll do that at a future board meeting once they're installed.
Okay.
Mike, ask them if curious when they do install them, what's the warranty period before we ask for a maintenance contract?
Okay, it's 1 year labor and parts, and 2 years for parts.
So would we get a contract in a year from now? So in other words, the first year, if we have problems, they should be coming out and fixing it? Or are we supposed to get
Well, we-
$600? Ask them that question, because I don't know.
Well, and that's something I'm sure that I'll discuss with them to make sure that if it comes with a 1 year warranty, so that obviously would be no reason to have.
The maintenance contract.
Yeah,
So I think it'd be a year from now, we'd be doing that maintenance contract.
that very
My
well,
instinct would say that.
and I'll reconfirm
I think the
that,
maintenance
but,
company-
Sometimes the maintenance isn't
Did you use your
necessarily
AC?
what the warranty is. The maintenance sometimes is giving it some grease,
Oh, sign it.
giving it some other little things that needs tweaking and adjusting, which might prevent us from having a failure down the road. We're not gonna just own it for a year, we're gonna own it for hopefully 20 years in the future. And what we do the first year might make them last longer. So I would
and one other thing, this system is designed for 6,000
use it a day.
uses a day, so.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
That should cover you for half of it.
It might, if my clicker works, they will.
If we get your clicker working, you could do that.
It's also got options for futuristic barcoding and stuff like that. If we ever got rid of the clickers, you could have a barcode in your windshield and just drive up to it. So it's a very, he's done a great job. So, okay?
No, he wants to keep it.
Who?
Jim.
And for that,
There you go.
I'm gonna pass on to the treasurer's report.
All right, thank you. We had some late statements come in, so things kind of got redone and reworked. But we right now have, I'm going to go straight to the back report that we have, which is the variance report, because it has all the information for the January meeting. Year to date, we have received $272,566 worth of CIP Phase 1 revenue, which is 48% of our gross that we are expecting. We've received $270,399 of our general maintenance, which is 50%. We are behind receipts for last year, significantly behind receipts. And that's probably because of the county's delay in producing the tax bills. I've not gotten any money yet this month. I haven't gotten an email yet this month, but I expect it will probably because of the holiday. I'll get it in the next week or so. So I do expect we'll get some money this month, but we are way behind our revenue collections for the year as compared to prior years. As far as other items on the agenda that are way out of budget, other income is significantly lower than budgeted, but that's because we haven't got the Brooks money yet. I did do the bill and the invoice for the Brooks money, and that reimbursement, so that invoice has gone out in the mail, and it was emailed also to the Brooks CDD. So I would expect in the next 60 days I will have that money come back into the coffers. So that as far as revenues, the only other thing, bank interest is really, we underestimated our bank interest, and that's because of the Federal Reserve decisions. We knew that they would go up the way they did. As far as expenditures, we have year-to-date spent $155,572 for general maintenance expenses, not considering Hurricane Ian expenses. We've spent $170,748 for Hurricane Ian expenses. So we are segregating those expenses from the general budget. So we have spent a total of $326,319. And if you recall from prior months, we took $200,000 out of our Florida Prime account to cover the Ian expenses so that our general revenues would not be impacted, and we could continue on with the business as usual. And we still have about $29,000 that is still available, that original $200,000 investment. Okay. So as far as our expenses that are out of whack, the administration is under budget, but that's because we haven't hired the manager yet, and we had allocated his salary, that salary for the superintendent of operations, into that administrative budget line item, so that is under budget. The bank fees is, I'm sorry, I'm looking at wrong lines. Auditor is under budget, but because we haven't received the progress billings. Drainage is way under budget because we haven't done the projects that we had originally intended to do this year. We haven't even begun them. So that, where we had budgeted $84,800, we've only spent $1,500 this year so far. Now, normally during this time period, we would be seeing Gerald working around the canals and his team, as well as doing the perimeter road, and that's part of the budget. His estimate came in. The board decided they wanted to put that out to bid, and so that work has not been done and it hasn't been paid. So we'll see this line item be a little bit skewed for the next probably couple months. Engineering is over budget by $11,530 on an annualized basis, and that's primarily due to the engineer transition and the right-of-way permitting. One of the things I'm going to do is, because I've had some concerns about our right-of-way permitting, the permit use and connection fee cost as related to the expense of the right-of-way permitting process. And so I'm going to go back and do an analysis over the last 5 years. I think I can get that information off Morris Depew. Ron Edenfield's office has a line item for right-of-way permitting. We know what the revenues have been that we've received. I want to see how much we're off in terms of our budget and what we're charging people for that use and connection, to see how much of the general maintenance is being actually used for the permitting process. So that's a project that I'm going to work on. The only other things that I see here that might be significant is roads is under budget as well as, and for the same reason as the drainage. We have projects planned for the roadways. We have not begun those projects. And so that's may or may not, depending on when we get those projects started, will determine when those line items come into play. Any questions? Okay. That concludes my report.
Thank you, ma'am. Attorney's report, Mr. Kramer.
Yes, sir. I have several resolutions for you this evening that are on your agenda. I also have the policies and procedures manual that I can discuss when that comes up under your agenda as well. With regard to items that are not old, new, and unfinished business on your agenda, I do not have any separate items to bring before the board this evening.
Okay,
I'm done.
you're done.
Wow.
Let me check the time on that. My clock didn't even start.
I'm just
Run the clock on him, Jim.
I'm just trying to set a new precedent.
There you go.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Wow.
But he didn't tell you he
Okay.
changed his billing
Now,
15
When
minutes.
were
Yeah.
when were we going to move the public agenda down to the bottom?
Well, we have to do, as he expressed before, we have to ask for input on the new and old and unfinished business first.
Okay.
And that's why that line item's there. That line item is only address things that are on the agenda, and then after that is later is
With all due
general
respect,
public.
we're trying to have a 3-minute limit to the time, so anybody who wants to speak, we're gonna try to work within those time frames, see how it works out. So our intent is not to
Right.
eliminate people from being able to talk until I tell them it's enough. Okay.
And Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
just to follow up with what has been said, part of the policies and procedures
It's going to
manual is going to include the board meeting procedure.
Okay.
So I prepared something for that as well. And so when we get to that, if you want me to, I can go into some detail about that
Okay.
discussion.
Okay.
That's all on your agenda.
The objective was to give people who need to speak the time they need, so that's why we wanted to put it after the business that we're conducting, so they'll have the amount of time given allotted to do that. So anybody have any input from the general public here this evening about anything we're doing?
It's on the agenda.
On the agenda items.
On the agenda items?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, just on the agenda item, perimeter road gates. I have less than 3 minutes of questions here. I'd just like to read them if you let me interrupt. So, number one is the website now, as of late 2022, says that the perimeter roads are private but with public access. So I'm curious who decided on these policy changes. Number two, you use the word public use. Does public use include commercial uses? Three, kindly state the purpose and vision for a community with regard to the 3 perimeter roads. So these changes seem to be significant and changing. So if you have some vision in mind, I'm just curious what that is, and you can share that with the rest of us. 4, there's a little confusion around the different vehicles, so I'd kindly ask you to state the policy regarding the following: ATVs, UTVs, golf carts, tractors, horses, and others, if I missed any. Number 5, what about the portion of track H945 at the north end of Tuck Drive that is not part of the easement right away? Number 6, do the individual landowners of the properties along the 3 perimeter roads retain any irrevocable rights of access, privacy, and exclusion? Number 7, will the roadway boundary be marked in any way so that the public does not trespass on non-easement private property? And number 8, just a general question: are the 3 perimeter roads in question, are they dedicated? That's it.
I believe that a number of the items that you have discussed will be in our upcoming policies and procedures and things. The other things being that Mr. Brindle might want to respond to.
Well, I do have responses. I did not write everything down. If you wouldn't mind sending me the questions, I'll be glad to.
You can do it now
Answer
or
them.
whenever you like.
But I'm not sure these are regarding the perimeter gates. Are they? It's not regarding perimeter gates.
Now we got
These questions don't refer to perimeter gates.
So, Mr. Chairman, I can respond to question number 1. If you've got the list, question number 2. Question number 3 is really to the board as to the purpose and vision of the community and the use of the perimeter roads. Question number 4, I think that there are some rules in place regarding types of vehicles that can use the roadways, but I don't know that rule specifically. But I think
I would say that part of these really don't pertain to us, they pertain to the sheriff's department.
yeah,
Unlicensed vehicles don't pertain to
yes.
the board.
I can talk about 5. So 3 and 4 are not really for me tonight. I can talk about 1, 2. I can talk about 5. 6, I can give some answer to. 7 is a board question. And 8 is an answer that I can give.
Okay, if you don't mind me answering 7 right now.
Sure.
Just a discussion between us and whoever wants to listen. Most people along the perimeter roads set their boundaries by putting up a chain link fence or some sort of fencing. They put up no trespassing signs on their property, So I don't totally understand, will the roadway boundaries be marked in any way so the public does not trespass on non-easement private property? People who pass my house, they can drive in my driveway, or you can put up a no trespassing sign or a gate to prevent them from getting there. So that would be my answer to that.
Yes, sir. And generally speaking, the district right-of-ways are generally known because of the existence of the canal and or the existence of the roadway and the swale ditches on either side of the roadway, and also because of the existence of the fences at the edge of the right-of-ways that have been established based upon the property owner's surveys that are normally done. That was going to be my response, was the roadway boundaries are generally marked by the adjacent property owner's installation of their improvements within their boundaries, either fencing or a buffer of some sort, vegetative buffer.
So when a four-wheeler comes down my road, I have no control from my position, and when I'm in my house, to keep them from going in my ditch or whatever they choose to do, except call the Lee County Sheriff's Department. So I can photograph it, I can do what I can do, and that's what all the citizens here should do if you've got a four-wheeler or a non-licensed vehicle that you're concerned about.
So if you want me to go through and answer some of these, I can, and I'll try to be quick.
Do your best.
Since I didn't use much time in my attorney's report,
You'll make it up now?
now you're going to get it.
Well,
So Jim,
I'll count on the fact you'll speed that along.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
so 7 is a no.
No, let's see.
No additional marking.
I would say that the board's not going to put up any additional markings at this time. There might be a reason later down the road, but most private property owners survey their property, they know where their boundaries are, and they put up fences, markings, whatever they choose to do.
So with regard to number 1, Mr. Nagy and the website, there was not a change in the district's policy. There was a change in the understanding and of the information of the correct interpretation of the policy, and then that information is what has been placed on the website. The perimeter roads are private roads in that they are for the use of the property owners in the district and for no others. They are not public roads in that they have not been dedicated to the city of Bonita Springs, and the city of Bonita Springs does not maintain them, and they are not open for public access.
So the city of Bonita Springs doesn't maintain any of our roads.
Yeah. Well, that's what I said. That's what I'm saying. They're private roads. They're not public roads.
All of our roads are private
Yes, sir.
roads.
They are all private roads within the district.
Including the perimeter roads and the streets we drive on.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, up to and including as well Strike Lane. So all the roads, once you come across the railroad right-of-way or come through the back gate, one of the two, into the district boundaries, all of the roads in the district boundaries are private roads for the benefit of the district residents. That's why you have gates on those two locations to maintain the fact that those roads are private, available to members of the district.
And the Lee County Sheriff's Department
Yes, sir. They have
provides law
access,
enforcement for these roads.
fire and rescue, all of them have access to all of the roadways. And I think even maybe keys and or the other methods to, when the gates are closed, even to get through the gates. So that is not a change, Mr. Nagy. Does public use include commercial uses? I think the question there is, can the roadways be used for commercial vehicle traffic? And the answer to that question is any road that is allowed as a legal use under the City of Bonita Springs zoning land use code for these properties is an allowed use of the roadways. So that would be the limitation. I don't have an answer off the top of my head as to what that land use authorization is by the City of Bonita Springs, but for other reasons I will be finding out probably in the next week or so anyway for other purposes. So I'll know and be able to further advise the board as to what those uses are.
I'm sort of curious as to the question. I'm not quite sure what the intent of that question is. Does public use include commercial uses?
Well, public,
What's the intent of the question?
my best interpretation is to get back to what Kozak used to do, the property owner named Kozak used to do, and that members of the public came to her property to purchase agricultural goods.
Okay.
And the property, to my knowledge, is although I'm going to verify with the city of Bonita Springs, but I think it's got an ag type of a zoning category, so that ag uses would be allowed on the property, where retail commercial sales, as an example, that would not be allowed, I do not believe, under the current land
I
use
think there's
designation.
something out there, if there's 5 acres or larger and they want to sell eggs or sell
Yes.
things that are agricultural products, they are allowed.
Yes, sir. And that's what I'm talking about. Ag-related commercial.
Is that the
uses.
intent of the question, Mr. Nagy?
Well, that's a good answer, but the other angle is if I'm into mountain biking and I have on my property some trails to ride a mountain bike, and if I start a business like to do mountain bike tours, can I take them on the perimeter roads and charge them and make a profit by using these roads?
Not as a matter of right, only if the board said that was an acceptable use
Really?
Really,
That's
yes, sir.
running a business.
Yeah.
So you could say no to me, but you could say yes to this gentleman.
Well, no, so that's not what I said. No, so that's not what I said. What I said was that the uses that are allowed are the uses that, as a right, are the uses that are allowed under the land use code of the city of Bonita Springs. Those uses that are allowed on the properties in the district are the uses that you can make of the property, and of the roads in association with those uses. If you want to use the roads for some other purpose that is not allowed by the land use code of the city of Bonita Springs, the only way you would be able to make that use would be if the Board of Supervisors said you could make that use. So as an example, they could say that the roadways, the perimeter roads, are going to be a linear park, and that linear park uses of X, Y, and Z, whatever those are, would be allowed. If they say that, and you have property use on your property, or you're selling something, you want people to be able to ride mountain bikes, and the board says that's okay, then it would be okay. Otherwise, I don't think it would be okay.
But concerning his private property, that goes back to code enforcement from the city of Bonita
Yes.
Springs.
Based upon land.
It's like that 5 acre rule. We didn't make the 5 acre rule for selling eggs or whatever. That's either state or Lee County's law code
Land use
enforcement
code.
issues.
Right.
They're not things that were made by this board.
Right. And so, connected to agriculture. And that's the main, I think that's the main crux of the land use provision, is the agricultural element to it. So putting in a retail, say a gas station with a convenience store, I don't think the city code allows, land use code allows that.
Well, that's what happened on that property before Mr. Nagy got it, as I believe to be correct, was that they were selling eggs and things there, and then they began selling red meat in freezers and stuff, which they went beyond their scope of what they were allowed to do.
Of the land use code.
And then the city stepped in and stopped them from doing that. This board did not do that.
Right. So,
Am I correct on that, or?
Yes, I have a question. Say we're gonna let him have a business. Okay, he's gonna run bikes all over our who's got the liability, responsibility if someone of those guys get hurt? It's on our property, and we're gonna be sued, not him.
No, I don't think the city is going to let it happen. So at this moment in time, it's a non-issue. So
That was my question.
But if,
Because we
even
would
if the
be
board was to
responsible.
get involved in it, the city would have to approve it first. I don't think their policies for residential and the kind of agriculture that we're zoned for will allow that, so.
But the city permits business, it doesn't permit where I run the business off the property.
They do for the kind of land that you use for the business.
I don't know about that. Okay.
Yes, sir. So you can't put a gas station on an ag zoned property. The use has to be consistent with the land use approved for that property.
But that wasn't your question. So.
If the land use allows agricultural uses, then that's the limit to what you can do.
There were a number of exercise organizations, physical fitness, during the COVID that had tried to move out here and work out of their houses, and they used our roads for the process of doing their exercising, etc., sort of what you've described. And the city code enforcement stepped in and said they can't do it out of their houses. So they ended up going out of the neighborhood. That's why I don't believe that what you're asking would fly with the city code.
So, and I'm even more confused because it's 298. It's all about controlling the water, but there's also provisions about roads, and then there's a provision about recreation and trails. So is this project for the perimeter roads about roads, or is it about trails for recreation?
Not for commercial business. And you're gonna try to run a commercial business on our roads.
Yeah, but he just said I could if I get permission.
Are we past
See
3
what you
minutes?
I don't think that's what I
We should go to the end of the
said.
meeting.
What I said
We're
was,
past 3 minutes. It's all about his property. We should move on.
No, it's about dozen properties.
okay, with all due respect, I think it is time to move on, Mr. Damian. Thank you for your. Was there any, the attorney was answering questions on this list. Do you have anything further you want?
Yeah, let me see if I can just summarize the rest of them. Number 4, there are provisions of the district that I believe discuss the types of vehicles that can use the right-of-ways. That's where you would go to find that answer. If you're talking about number 5, if you're talking about the notch at the end of Top Drive, that is not part of the easement right-of-way. There is no use being made of that property. When I discovered that notch area was not included in the district's easement, in the district's right-of-way, I asked the district to stop using it, and they did. Number 6, no. All of the rights of any individual landowners in relation to the perimeter roads, their rights are subject to the district's right-of-way rights. The district's right-of-way rights supersede, trump, overcome any other rights to the district right-of-way, including access. If you want access even to the perimeter road, then you need to follow the district's right-of-way access permit requirements. And are the 3 perimeter roads dedicated? Yes, there is that plat that I've referred to on a number of occasions, which has language in it related to that. I don't remember what the word is. If you are saying dedicated to the public, then the answer is no, they were not dedicated to the public. They were dedicated to the benefit and use of the property owners within the district. If you want to see that language, then you can look on that dedication, look at the dedication language or at the language of that plat to see what it says. But it is for private use, not public use. That relates back to your question number 2, I think.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. We're going to move on. Any other guests have any other questions? If not, we're going to move on. Contracts, Moving on to new and old business, unfinished business. Contracts on the canal perimeter road cleaning and roadway trimming. That was the FEMA contracts.
That was the RFPs that Ron and John were going to submit to try and get bids for the canal cleaning.
Did anything happen with that this month?
We received the templates last week. Templates from Mr. Franklin's office.
Yes, sir. Remember before I had done RFPs
Right.
for several of those. Carolyn was out the week before sick, so last week we finally got everything out, and so they have those RFP forms.
Okay.
The plan
And
was,
let's move forward with that this month.
the plan is to review those, get those out. I think there was a committee formed with Mr. Pringle, Mr. Salucci, myself, and volunteers.
Okay.
Anybody
who wants to volunteer for these things are welcome to do that.
So we'll get it reviewed, updated, and then out to the group for revisions and discussion, and then we'll have it finalized for next month.
The main thing is
let's
this scope
make sure
of
that next month we move forward with something and
Okay.
have some sort of report. Okay.
Jim, would you like for, or Jim, John, and Ron, would you like for me in the tab that says latest happenings in the district, would you like for me to say that we are entertaining bids for canal cleaning and
Absolutely.
to contact Ron?
Get pre-advertising, sure, why not?
Okay.
And we would ask all the residents that are here this evening, if you know anybody or involved with anybody or have any just word of mouth, want to call, even want to make a phone call to somebody on any of these subject matters we're talking about. One of the biggest problems we have today is getting the word out, trying to get additional people to apply and bid on jobs. So if you're sitting in the audience, you know somebody, call your friend, call Tony if you want. But anyway,
Tony's not interested.
Dredging them out or just cutting the brush out of them or what?
This is brush cleaning and doing the maintenance and stuff on the canal system that we're supposed to do. Mr. Edenfield and John Salucci will give you any of the information.
Oh, I'm not interested in doing it. I'm just
No,
trying
I meant if you know anybody, please, if you know a lawn care guy who is lacking work and he wants something to do and he thinks he can handle it with these crews, put him
So
to
we're
work.
not using the guy that's been doing it for years?
We're bidding the items out to make sure we stay in tune with what the job should be costing, not just throwing your money out there. And if you want to vote to throw your money out there, then you just raise the taxes and do that.
So Gerald is not excluded from the process.
Nobody's excluded.
He's gonna bid on it just like.
He has to bid on it with everybody else. Tony's done the same thing, you can ask him, so.
Who's cutting the grass now?
Honey, right now.
Tony does a good job.
You can compliment him or reprimand him.
No, I just didn't know who was doing it. I haven't
But
seen it
if
yet.
you would, please, do it after the meeting, because we're gonna try to move along here. Okay, culvert cleaning, I know that's.
Same process.
It's the same process, so we're going to go ahead and table that till next month. Policies and procedures.
Yes, sir. There has been a considerable amount of work done on them, especially with regard to the procurement policy, the board meeting policy, the document retention policy, which was an item that the auditor, as I recall, may have mentioned, and the employment part of the policy manual as well. The bottom line of the policy manual, especially with regard to the procurement policy section, because we want to make sure that we have adoption of all of this, so that if FEMA asks us, then they will be able to be provided with policy. All of those have been done. They are all rolled together. As I indicated, I think at the last board meeting, the board's choice is to say, we approve the policies. If you want me to go through the individual ones, I was going to go through them at the end of the meeting, but I can go through them
Why
now.
don't you move along to the end of the meeting, so anybody who has any questions on other items, if they choose to leave, they can. If they want to stay, they
Okay.
can.
But what I would suggest to the board after talking with Supervisor Salucci is that, and again, because this is a set of policies that can be modified at any time, by the board at any time, any board meeting. You can modify your policies. They're your policies.
They're going to be living policies.
Yes, sir. So as a result of Supervisor Salucci's efforts, and then as a result of my efforts on top of that to connect to the statutory compliance items and make reference to those, I believe the policies are in a form where they can be approved, always subject to the board's further revision. I would ask, if the board is going to do that, that you give Supervisor Salucci and I the opportunity to finish them, whatever other comments that we have. We had a few more items that we were still discussing. As an example, the Code of Ethics. The board said that you were going to adopt Part 3 of Chapter 112 of the Florida statutes, which is the Code of Ethics for public officers, public officials, as your Code of Ethics. There's some specific subsections of that Part 3, Chapter 112, that I would like to specifically make mention of in your policy manual. So if the board decides you want to do it tonight, if you want to approve the policy manual as a whole, you've seen the bits and pieces, you know that I've worked on them, and we will then put it all when Supervisor Salucci, with authority for Supervisor Salucci to give his final approval blessing. Then at that point, they will go on the website. Then if FEMA does ask if we have a procurement policy in place, we will be able to answer yes, the board has officially adopted one.
And that is a requirement, so we need to act on something.
Yes.
So I'm going to make a motion that the board adopt the policy and procedures that have been drafted and nearly finalized in all aspects. And then also the board authorize Mr. Pringle and myself to finalize any last minute paragraph here, verify, cross-reference, check, but they're basically done.
And to continue working on it.
And continue working on it.
Yes, sir. And then sorry, that was a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
I'm not adding anything.
Your second?
A second.
Aye. Motion
All in
carries.
favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Did you incorporate a fixed asset policy?
Hurricane Ian damage issues, resolution, repairs, FEMA payments for repairs. Is there any action we need to take on that tonight?
I think you probably already did that with the gate.
Okay, that's what I thought. So, and that's going to be an ongoing thing for the upcoming meetings. 8991 Strike Lane.
Mr. Chairman, I continue to have conversation with the landowner's legal counsel. I have no action items for you this evening.
Okay.
Can I make a suggestion and then
Yes,
we
ma'am.
move this to a quarterly agenda item as opposed to a monthly?
What you could do is you could say, when there's something that really requires action of the board, bring it back. We could put it back on the agenda at that point.
Okay, let's do that.
You could do that. And
So
I make a
motion?
motion to remove from the agenda until something develops that requires to be on the agenda.
Requires action of the board.
Yep.
requires action of the board.
Yes, sir. David Cook, Deep Drive. What's going on with that now? I mean, like, I'm sorry. What's the things holding that up?
Mr. Chairman,
Right now, we're in litigation with that.
Okay.
Well,
that's all I needed to know.
But we totally have to.
But we're not.
That's all I need. What's that?
so just
Is that a need-to-know basis? Is that what you said? Okay, that's fine.
We're not in
just
litigation.
to
That's-
clarify, there are discussions which at times is a little tense between litigants, the lawyers.
I could imagine. Yes.
No one has filed an action yet. No one has threatened legal action in writing, and so we don't officially have legal action pending. But there are controversies related to the settlement agreement that was
Signed years ago.
entered into way back by the district and the predecessor property owners that we continue to discuss, that the lawyers continue to discuss.
It's because we need to know what the boundaries are. and where we stand. So that has to be solved. It's not a choice that we have.
That's fine.
Okay?
Thank you.
Okay. So, manager job description. I
Okay,
think-
before we go on, John made a motion to remove the item from the agenda. Do we have a second?
Okay,
Jim, you seconded it?
I do.
Motion passed?
Yep.
Okay, now,
Secretary treasurer job description.
Wait, manager job description section?
I thought we just did that.
no.
No, so that was actually
So I have some
89.91.
input
Oh.
on that?
Okay. Sorry about that. I got ahead of you. Trying to get you to know. Manager job description selection.
I'm gonna. So on January 6th, I sent over some of the policy procedures to one of the people that was waiting to put a book proposal together
Okay.
for that position. So just getting input from her. She owns Uptown Properties. She's been 18 years in the business. She specializes in HOAs, associations, which we are not, but communities she does manage also. One of her employers is a former employee for the Southwest Florida Water Management District. So she's reviewed a list of my information, kind of collaborating. Whether she gets it or not, it's irrelevant. She's just a gal that's going to give her input on it and be able to formulate a proposal. And she's going to put a proposal together too. So using that information, so I'm just kind of collecting that information and I'm hopeful that by next meeting, I'll have a nice little spreadsheet for that.
Okay. So you're not expecting an action. You're just expecting a spreadsheet for it.
Expecting her to just kind of put together her thoughts and opinions based on
Okay.
Based
what
on
she
her
does as a
expertise.
business.
Based on her
Is
expertise.
she
Yeah, based on her
actually
expertise.
planning on applying for the job? Okay. Just so you all know that we have been for the past year looking for a manager for the water control district. The board has been filling in the blanks all of this time, sort of acting in that position. Chris has been the primary person, and I just want to let everybody, the thank yous go out to her for all the hard work and everything that she's continued to put into it.
Ideally,
But-
it would be a homeowner.
But
To
it
fill his position, but-
is open to anybody with any experience or not who wants to apply, who has the, whatever you want to say, but anyway. Smarts works. But the wherewithal or whatever, and the effort and wants to do the job, okay? And they need to make that known to the board at some point. So anybody you know that wants to do that, yes, ma'am.
Just curious, is that a full-time position and what does it entail, if you don't mind? If you could just give me a little brief summary.
Well, that's what they're still working on.
Yeah. So tentatively, the 40-hour work week of the a proposed annual salary on the budget,
Sure.
but paid monthly or weekly. What are you paid?
Monthly.
Monthly by monthly.
Monthly.
Monthly. So putting that whole formula together for that position, but like.
The salary would definitely be,
the salary,
the
right.
salary would definitely be determined as to any experience, et cetera, that's brought forth to the board. And the board would evaluate that, so.
For
it's all-
example, the manager could come and do preliminary reviews of permits, what's going on in different activities, so engineering doesn't have to come here all the time.
Correct.
You can work with the treasurer for any issues with following up on tax receipts. Pretty much everything the three of us are doing now,
Sure.
that manager would be doing.
Along with overseeing all of the operations within the water control district. So anything with our canal system, our ditch system, when the complaint comes in, the manager gets it, not me or them. And it's not that we mind, because we enjoy talking to the community out here. It's a small community, and I'm changing the subject a little bit. There's been people within our community recently that started doing Christmas parades and Halloween parades and things. That was not me, by the way. That was other residents. And I think that we're a small community, and I think it's great that people are starting to want to bring it together. If there's any volunteers for fixing the front fence, they're welcome to volunteer. But go ahead.
I was going to say, and another example would be writing letters asking for grant money from Tallahassee, possibly even from the Washington, D.C. Something I've talked with the board members here. I think it would be a great opportunity to work with FGCU down the street that just spent like $100 million and opened up an entire environmental water school. So get some of the students there to come and do internships. Here, small paid internship, actually check all the waters, canals, the environment, the life here. It was just like a little ecosystem, middle of Bonita. And they come and they get some experience. Maybe we'll figure out a program for credits, and manager would manage that. And they interact with the engineering firm. They learn issues about some of the laws for what 298 is, the canal, because South Water District of Southwest Florida is the powerhouse here. We're just within that, you know. So they're going to learn at FGCU all the issues that impact the Gulf and the wildlife. So why not in the Pure River? So why not learn live rather than in the classroom? You can do both. So FGCU doesn't know that, but we need people to go and, like, we could start it, make the initial contact, but then someone would help manage that. So there's many things we could be doing here, but it is 3 people.
And again, if there's anybody in the room tonight that knows anybody at FGCU that they can make a phone call to and drop a dime and maybe get us on the road to that would be very helpful. This water control district happens to be the hub of all of our surrounding cities and communities, whatever they happen to be. The manager needs to be part of the system that makes contacts with our political people to start. We've been footing the bill for managing this water all of these years. I think we incorporated in 1956, if I'm correct, and we've been paying the bill ever since. In the early years, it was only a couple of dollars. Matter of fact, as I recall reading in some of the history that Chris gave me, the whole land mass out here was worth $1,000.
$400 an acre.
How much?
37,000 initially.
No, I think I saw initially
$400.
$1,000. But anyway, immaterial, it was almost free land. Today, we have all the outside sources that are dumping into our canal system, and we need to start getting them to pay their fair share. And that's everything from the state of Florida to the railroad to the cement plant to Bonita Springs to the city of Estero. Every one of the agencies are dumping into our system, and you're paying the bill. And we're trying to get a handle on that and get them to start paying their fair shares. That's all I have.
So Jennifer, next meeting, you're going to bring in the job description for approval by the board. Okay.
Any other on the manager position? Because we're going to go to the secretary treasurer's next, I think.
And that's the issue with the gray area, but kind of rolling over, being several hats. But I mean, obviously, Chris maintain that role.
Okay.
All right. So we're going to table both those items till next month.
Okay.
Or where can we at one point just make, Chris has identified she wants to continue to definitely be that secretary treasurer.
Depending on the job
position.
description.
You need your job description. Okay. Will you write that up tomorrow?
Well, so Mr. Chairman, so the next step is to table this item for the next meeting by official action. And then at some point, there will be job descriptions and then
Posted for a job?
yes, sir, a description of maybe like a request for qualifications or something based upon the job description for the position, and based upon the second position, secretary treasurer job description. Based upon that, then Ms. Lawson would be able to give you her feedback
So
on
motion
that.
to table the duties
Both
and
items.
descriptions of the manager and the secretary treasurer job descriptions and duties.
Yes, ma'am.
Second motion.
Aye. Carried.
Okay. So
First one.
just to step back, you tabled contracts, culvert cleaning, and we didn't get motions. I was just going to come back and get those later. Do you want to do the motions now, or do you want to come back and do them later?
Let's just get them out of the way. Let's
All
go.
right.
I
So-
make the motion to table all the things we said we're going to table.
Okay. Second.
Well, spoken, John.
Seconded.
Aye.
Motion passed.
Motion
Okay.
carries. Thank you. You're welcome. Good choice.
We're on the way to reimbursement resolution.
Okay. We have copies of that here in front of us.
No?
Which one?
Reimbursement resolution.
The fund balance
No,
or the amendment of the resolution?
Reimbursement resolution.
Reimbursement form.
This is what it is right here.
Yeah, right
That's
there.
that's to take the federal to adopt the federal.
No, I'm sorry. The reimbursement resolution I did,
Oh, well, that was for the amount of money we get, et cetera, for
the
whether
phase
we're using the
two.
state of Florida's policy or.
Okay. I may be confused then. I
Yeah.
did the reimbursement resolution for the money that was used out of general revenue
Correct.
to pay off the phase two assessment in full.
We haven't discussed a decision on that, have we?
We already did that.
No.
Some time ago, we talked about fixing that because it's an audit item.
It's an audit item. We need to
Yeah.
fix it, but
So
I
it's
didn't
been on
think.
my radar
Yeah.
as a result of trying to solve the audit issues.
Right, but the board had not come up with a decision or have had any discussion unless they've done it privately.
Were you,
No.
ready,
With you.
were you ready for that this evening?
Well, I've got the resolution that says that, in effect, that says that money was taken from the operations budget and used in, I can't remember, was it last year or the year before?
Year before.
In fiscal year, whatever that was, 2021,
Mhm.
to pay off the phase two bond indenture that occurred, and that this resolution would be to take funds out of the phase two bond resolution and put it back into the operations
We don't have any money in phase two.
left.
Yeah, that's none.
No, we never had any money in.
You're talking
Phase
funds
two.
out of the general fund to do.
Yeah, but you can't.
Unless
do
you're talking
that,
about
so the
taking
problem
funds out
is
of
you have to correct
Prime, the
Yes.
unassigned
Amen.
funds at Florida Prime
That
to
were
reimburse general maintenance.
that should have, we got to fix.
Mhm.
We're gonna
Right, the
reimburse ourselves.
The issue, the issue is, the issue that was brought up is, one, that we did that, but two, are we going to go back and rebill those persons who had not paid their share or their payment of phase two,
Yes.
or
And that's
not?
not right. That's another decision. That's a bigger decision for the board. What I was trying to do was fix from the standpoint of the budgeting. And I thought maybe I had it wrong with the auditor, but I had a conversation with the auditor where he said that we needed to get it fixed. We needed to get a resolution adopted to rectify.
May I say something? It appears that we're not going to make any decision
No,
on this subject
this
matter
week.
tonight. Why don't you
Yes.
speak with Chris during the course of the
And
month
the auditor.
and talk with our auditor and come back with
Yes.
an answer next month.
I'll fix that.
Okay.
All right, so I'll put that on the February agenda.
Thank you. So that's what the reimbursement resolution
No.
was on here for?
The reimbursement resolution here was to adopt the federal
Mandate.
mileage and per diem reimbursements as opposed to the
That's what I
state.
thought it was.
I apologize. That was not the one that I was heading down.
All right, so we'll table that.
Chasing. No, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. If you would, please. No, I don't have that one.
So
So Jim, you want to make a motion to table?
I'll make a motion to table the reimbursement resolution policy till next month.
Second?
Second.
Motion passed?
Favor aye, yeah.
Okay.
Motion carries. I have one question though before we go on. You did give us these reimbursement forms, which I asked you to do and which you already had taken care of, and I really appreciate that. Only thing I would like to do is see you up here, move this down, put San Carlos Estates Water Control District on it.
Okay,
Okay?
that's easy enough.
Make it a little more official.
And you wanted to use the IRS rates for that
Correct.
reimbursement.
The highest ones we can go for.
Yeah, those are the IRS rates.
We don't often say that.
Got it.
Okay. Next thing, I guess the next one down is maybe where you were going was the funds assignment resolution,
There,
or was that something?
and again, what I have is a resolution that says the board previously established the fund balance policy and created the 5 categories of the fund balance. And this resolution was to place dollars into those 5 categories. And so this resolution said that the board adopted resolution 22-09, which adopted a fund balance policy that designated 5 categories for fund balance to be maintained by the district. And whereas the district is desirous of initially assigning fund balance by this resolution into one or more of the designated 5 categories of fund balance. And then I had a section of the resolution that said that pursuant to the San Carlos Estates Water Control District Fund Balance Policy adopted by the district's initial assignment of fund balance since the adoption of the fund balance policy, and as of the date of this resolution is as follows, and then there were the 5 categories. So I don't know the numbers for the 5 categories, but those were the 5 categories.
Okay, so we needed to create an emergency assigned fund, and we needed to create a assigned fund for expenses for the 90-day period from the end of the year to the time that we started receiving tax revenues, which is typically December. And so we discussed assigning $90,000 for the general maintenance period, the 90-day general maintenance period.
How much?
90. And then,
And that's for the time period between October 1st and December 31.
right.
Okay.
And then we really need to decide whether or not the $85,000 is really, given our recent experience, a sufficient amount to assign to the emergency fund. And the idea behind the emergency fund is to have monies available to be able to draw on immediately in the case of an emergency like the hurricane, to act as an interim funding source until more permanent funding could be attained. Now, in the case of Ian, we decided that we really needed $200,000. So maybe our original $85,000 that we talked about as that emergency fund is insufficient, and we should probably assign a greater number now that we have more information, more recent information.
The account of which we retrieved the money from was about $800,000. Am I correct?
Correct.
Now, what is that money for if it's not for?
It's
emergencies?
unassigned. That's a part of our contingency unassigned dollars.
Okay, and wouldn't that be used as an emergency fund?
We don't want to assign the whole thing, but we could use part of that and assign 200. Yeah, assign
we could assign 200
of those dollars. Yes.
But with all due respect, it's sort of a crapshoot no matter what you do, because nobody knows how high the water's going to go or what the next storm's going to be.
And so the purpose of all of this is to categorize the fund balance. You have revenue, you have cash carry forward revenue, you have assessment revenue that all comes into the district's revenue pot. Then you have expenses for operations, you have expenses for the phase 1 repayment, annual repayment amount, and then you've got fund balance, which is essentially everything that's left over. Mm-hmm. And so some of those dollars are in either a non-spendable fund balance category. If you are required, say, if you've got there is a category for that you don't normally have. I don't think you have any really non-spendable fund balance dollars. Restricted fund balance, you don't have impact fees. That's normally the biggest category of restricted fund balance is impact fees. committed fund balance, if your phase one assessment loan, annual loan payoff dollar amount is included in this budget, then that might be a committed fund balance number for that loan, annual loan payment amount.
But we receive it and we pay it back, so it's
and
committed.
it's out of the
yeah.
separate.
Right, it's in its own bank account, and so it's segregated from the general funds. But you're right, it is part of our funds balance.
Yeah. So
And
that
so-
would be an item that I would list under committed fund balance, would be that annual amount for that, I believe. And then assigned fund balance would be the 90,000 that you just said for your operating expenses from October 1 to December 31 is one item, and the second one would be your emergency funds, whatever that number is. And then the balance would be unassigned fund balance.
Can I make a suggestion? Identifying an emergency fund account is fine because we didn't really have it before. And if we look at the $170,000 we spent with this major hurricane, a lot of the things that were cleaned up probably aren't going to grow back in the next year to be so significant. We're spending another $170,000. We even have another category 4 this coming year. So I would look at
The thing
20-25% of that 170 spend. If you're looking for a number to put in there, I'd probably make, instead of 70 or 85, I'd probably put in 50,000. If you're trying to earmark it.
The only thing I would differ with you on that is that this time we had a reasonably dry storm and we had a lot of wind. If we had a minor wind event, but a catastrophic rain event, we could wash out our perimeter roads, even one of our major roads, and we would need the money to do that with. It's hard to predict anything when we're talking about unknowns. And I can say all I want to say, and it's still an unknown out there.
Well, I think the first thing is identifying and creating a category for the account. I don't think anybody's disagreeing with it.
Right.
It's the dollar amount going in there.
And we're really not going to be taking any money out of any existing
moving
account, and we're not going to be moving it. We're just going to be assigning X,
An amount.
an amount of that fund or that account towards that purpose. And it's not really going to change how we operate or
No.
do anything. We're just really trying to
That's right.
clarify the
Well, then if you're trying to do that, flip a coin, 50% of the 170 spent. Whatever that number is.
which is the original 85,000 that we had.
There you go.
Okay, we're done with that.
May I ask a question?
We need a motion for that or anything, or is it just stay in the?
Well,
Yes, sir.
we have the the
Jim?
resolution.
Yes,
I
yes.
apologize. Can somebody just tell me what the 5 categories are?
Sure.
I heard emergency assigned, general
Go ahead.
fund.
They are, and these are, the reason that all of this is happening now is the audit, we changed auditors and the new auditor said we needed to have this in place, which is good. The 5 categories that are in the fund balance policy that was previously adopted are non-spendable fund balance,
Yeah.
restricted fund balance, number 3, committed fund balance, number 4, assigned fund balance, and number 5, unassigned fund balance. And out of those 5 categories, the vast majority of the district's funds here are going to be in either the assigned fund balance line item or the unassigned fund balance, and the committed fund balance is going to be the annual phase 1 bond payment.
Thank you.
So you're not going to have non-spendable or restricted anymore here.
No. In the past, all of our dollars were unassigned, except for the CIP dollars, phase 1 and phase 2, when we had phase 1 and phase 2.
You know what that is, the CIP?
So, no, I was just going to ask her for clarifying on that because I just wrote it down.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought everybody knew what CIP was. That was the road pavement project.
Okay.
In 2005, they
What was
was
it?
a
Capital
capital
Improvement
improvement
Program.
2005, pave all these roads, do every the infrastructure you see here.
Thank you.
And then the tax dollars are collected, have been paying that back.
And it's still in debt.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
it ends in 2025. It's a lot of money.
Who did we
There's
borrow
nothing
it
but dirt
from?
roads here.
Yeah, who did we borrow it from?
It was a bond.
It was a
We
bond
did
issue.
bond
Bond
issuing,
funds, yeah.
and through Bank of America.
They oversee it. Yeah, they oversee it and collect the dollars and disperse the dollars.
If you want to know any more about that, I would just suggest maybe you call Chris at some point in time, just talk to her one-on-one, and
Sure.
okay. That way you can get the answer straight.
So
Okay.
can we use the Florida Prime Fund as the account for that, for this?
For the committed fund to balance now?
Yeah,
Yes, ma'am.
or for these two.
Yes.
Okay.
So,
We
yes,
need any
sir.
action on that.
Yes, sir. So at some point, you're going to need to adopt a resolution, and I think you can do it this evening. Or do you want to have that Phase 1 CIP annual payment amount as well?
I don't think they're going to sign that, so
No, I'm going to get it fixed.
yeah. So let's
Um,
just bring it to next month to do it now that everybody's.
Okay. All right. So, Mr. Chairman, you want to table it to next month's meeting?
Okay, put a motion on the table that we postpone that till next month's meeting.
That's a motion.
Carries.
So you'll see a resolution that instead of having blanks, we'll have the blanks filled in with dollar amounts that will essentially take your current fund balance, big number, and divide it into three categories: committed fund balance, assigned fund balance, and unassigned fund balance.
Thank you, sir.
Okay,
Okay.
that's it.
Moving on to, let's see,
Perimeter road gates.
perimeter road gates.
You had a discussion last month about that you wanted to bring forward this month.
Let's see. You can't remember what the discussion was.
It had to do about either leaving them open, right?
Maintaining and we're changing and making the
The question,
cleaned up and consistent.
the question has been that on a number of areas of the perimeter road gates, they extend totally across the roadway, eliminating the pedestrians from being able to walk down the roads. The other places, they've been encumbered by people who have chosen to put up barbed wire, rocks, other encumbrances, which puts the board at risk for allowing that to continue on, knowing that we know it. So we have to make some decision as to what we're going to do as to modifying road gates, either having some of them modified by cutting them off to a certain point to allow for people to get by, or the owners of the surrounding properties making sure they stay clean so people can pass by. Right now we've got some, I know, on Bonita Bill, that it doesn't matter what we do over there, we can't fix it unless we modify the gate to adapt to it. So that again is a project that's going to need somebody to work with it to get it done.
Who installed the original gates?
That's done as
The barriers.
That was done as part of the CIP project.
Okay.
I know you've been around a long time on the board and stuff. What was the purpose ever of installing the gates? Why did they do, what was the decision, do you know?
I think I remember something about there was a liability on the outer perimeter roads that the district didn't want to maintain. You'd have to ask Judy exactly what it was. But they didn't want the responsibility to maintain those outer roads because the liability was so high for traffic to go around, which we like the one way. What goes down has to come back. They don't go around and do their business.
But we're referring to automobiles and stuff,
Yes.
not necessarily.
Yes,
Because it's
automobiles.
always been that people were allowed to walk, ride their bicycles, etc.
Correct.
That's always been part of the policy. The
Correct.
problem is, over the years, certain people have chosen to block you off from being allowed to do
That
that.
is correct.
So that's what I think the board needs to take some action on to correct, to make those areas open to people walking around the community.
But the thing is, you open them enough and these bikes go through, like motorized
But
vehicles.
that's where it comes back to the sheriff's department.
Yes.
Being notified and people calling them and saying that it's going on. the board can't be the police officers out here. We don't have a police department.
That is.
No different than city officials have. You call a councilman, he's gonna tell you to call the police department. Yes,
If you're looking for volunteers to serve on a committee to address it, I'd be willing to do that since we're on one of the properties that are adjacent to one of these
be
roads.
more than.
Our gate, by the way, happened, you can get around it, pedestrians can get around it, I think it's gonna be important, no matter what. to
I can't see you, the chair's in the way.
Important to involve people who are going to be more directly impacted by whatever policy is put in place. So that's, but I'd be willing to serve on that committee, not lead it.
I'd be more than happy to have you be on that committee and have parts of it. So we need to form a committee to work on that.
Okay, I guess I'm.
And to make some, I assume to make some recommendations as to how.
Do we have
And
that?
what's your name and we have your contact?
Might deal.
I'm gonna make a suggestion to the board, just talking with the engineering, that Mike, if you wanna work with me and the engineering firm, we'll come up with a standard size of what any gate should look like on any perimeter road.
Okay.
And from that point on, that's what the gates have to be.
Yeah.
And if they're this wide and they only allow for a golf cart or a bicycle and someone walking, that's it. And then once that's a standardized approach to all perimeter roads, then that supports the board's responsibility.
Right.
Okay, Tony lives on a perimeter road. Do you want to be part of that too?
Yes.
Okay.
So I think we should do that.
Okay, is there any chance you'd like to be part of that?
No, sir, because I don't live on one of those roads.
Was it what I asked?
I know it wasn't.
Yeah, my comment was to limit it to people on
I
private
will
roads, but I think
not
that was
say
good enough
anything
for
to
people
tell.
on private roads. So.
I would like to remind the board that we did put into the budget some dollars for maintenance and cleanup of
We
the
did.
perimeter roads and around the gates.
We did.
So there is some funding available for that.
Only question I have to is, if you have this standardized gate, with the assumption that it's a standardization that's gonna allow a standardized size for pass-through, but those roads deviate in width. Like the gates seem pretty similar on the north end, but there's one that's specifically like way up in the rocks on the swale and still has
That's what we're talking
Yeah.
about, cleaning up those things.
But I'm saying if you're gonna standardize it, that's a great idea, but those roads are all the same.
What I'm suggesting is that if the citizens can get together along with supervisors and come up with some guidelines, then we could go in and prepare some options, relative to width, configuration.
Because I feel like those barriers serve the purpose as long as there's enough space on the side. Because some have like the concrete piling, and then it has a space, and then it has the gate. But there's like some in particular that take the whole width, and you'd have to go up onto the rocks to get around, and it doesn't. Somebody fall on the swale.
Well, that's
or a big
what's
rock.
got this all
Right.
started. And actually, this started when Judy Tapley was still chairman of the board, and the discussions came up, and she said at one meeting that she would grab a hold of the pole and maneuver around the outside. When you want to talk about liability, I had to cringe.
I
sitting
think
here.
like the easiest and most
Judy was
affordability would
bold.
be to get rid of them all, but then discussing that liability.
You're not gonna be able to stop the
I'm
road.
no expert either.
Excuse me,
The
gentlemen.
property owners are allowed to put gates
No.
on the perimeter road?
No. These are only gates that are owned by
The
the
district.
South San Carlos Estates Water Control District.
Somebody's modified those gates with rocks and things.
Yes,
Correct.
and barbed wire.
And barbed wire and whatever else you can think of to prevent you or anybody else from walking on the perimeter road.
So they've encroached onto the right of way with these barriers.
And the biggest complaint was the individuals on the four-wheelers zooming around the community. I think that's kind of subsided a little bit.
Well, it's almost subsided completely. We don't see them much anymore, but it's a police action. It's not a board action. People have been bringing it before this board for years, and that's where you just got to pick up. Yes, sir, Mike.
Well, along that line though, the board can make policies and have standards that minimize the ability for people to use those vehicles to circumvent the intent what it is. And there's a lot of circumvention going on right now in a variety of ways.
Sure.
So, and hopefully we also discussed
No, yeah.
the possibility of signage so that people who don't attend the meetings and who aren't aware of what the standards are will know before they enter.
As you being part of the committee,
Yeah.
that's something you can bring up. And if it's supported by the committee, the board will support it, and they'll go up on the end of every street, okay?
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes, sir.
Just to make a sunshine law clarification.
Yes, sir.
The board's not going to take any formal action to do anything, but if Supervisor Salucci and Mr. Edenfield and a couple of property owners want to get together and help the supervisors formulate a plan that would then be brought back to the board for consideration in the future, that's a good way to
That
go.
was the intent.
I thought it was.
Okay.
So no board action being taken.
No, and they don't make final decisions.
That's right. And the supervisor will bring back any thoughts to the board for the board's consideration.
Thank you.
So there's not committee activity going on.
Correct.
Okay, good.
Thank you very much. We appreciate this.
All right.
We're going to move on.
The next item is we make our loan payments on the 1st of February, and I just got the invoice for February 1 today, and August 1st. If we want to make a change to the stated payment, we have to notify Bank of America before the payment is due if we want to do an additional prepayment. We ended up the year in 2022, September, because of prepayments for payoffs received with over $10,000, and I would like to ask the board if I could increase our loan payment on February 1 by that $10,000 that we received in loan payoffs, so that to help to further reduce the loan.
What's the purpose of the extra 10,000?
Okay, here's just so everybody knows where this money came from. Came from people who chose to pay off their loan early. It came from people who sold their property, and in the sales, it was a contingency to pay off the properties early. Am I correct? Mm-hmm. And that's where the additional $10,000 has come from. As long as it's okay with our accountant and our attorney, I'm okay with it.
And our auditor.
That's what I mean.
We've done it in the past. And we have it built in our budget that in August we're going to pay $95,000 as an additional pay down if all the tax revenues are received. We currently have enough money before any monies come in January to make the loan payment and the $10,000 and still have funds left over.
I'm all in favor of it. I'm just a little reluctant on what happened a couple of years ago with the payoff out of the loan funds.
Oh no, this is coming strictly from the CIP account.
And the only reason I asked that question is, you said earlier in the Treasury report, we're at 48% so far collected.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So confidence level for the other 52% of taxes coming in will come in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty high.
The best part's coming up right now.
Okay, so I don't have a problem.
It's this early part we're usually slow on getting.
So
Yes.
when you do that, it goes towards the principal.
Sure.
Correct.
Okay, sometimes you'll make an extra payment if you don't clarify principal.
Oh no, it has to.
Here's the banker right there.
Good.
Yeah, it has to be clarified.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
So I need a motion.
I'm gonna make a motion.
Go ahead.
I motion that we had additional 10,000 for February 1st payment.
You want a second?
Second.
Aye. Motion carries.
We'll check with the auditor to make sure.
To verify as
Yes, I want to talk to the auditor anyway, so
I have
that's
to
another.
It's
I have to
approved based
notify
on
that
whatever you
pretty-
do. Okay?
contingent upon the approval of the auditor.
pretty quick.
Tomorrow, I'll talk to the auditor.
Rocky Road issue.
Oh, that's Sri Chetty.
Yeah.
You have a copy of his latest email that he
It's
sent to
almost like
John.
he's
He has rose his head up again and is not happy. John, would you like to talk
You got
about?
it?
I think Dad's here somewhere.
Sent me
Here.
a numerous number of
Here.
emails. All right, so basically, Mr. Chetty down on Rocky Road is the last property on the right. There's another property across from his property, and in between is more of the road that's unpaved. And he's been quite annoyed by ATVs and everything going down there. I know Mike put some more red reflectors trying to really block people going down there. And it's my understanding that has stopped a lot of the ATVs. The other issue is his neighbor continues to bring out a basketball court, portable on wheels, and puts it in the culvert area for the kids to play basketball. I've personally seen it at least twice. So it's not necessarily his driver comes outside his fence and goes in the culvert. So his complaint is, and I think it's a valid complaint in the sense that if he can't do things in the culvert, why is the neighbor doing things in the culvert? It's been going on for at least 3-4 years, according to him. So I do think that the fact that the neighbor is putting stuff in the culvert is impacting us, the district, and in particular something big like that. If it fell down into the culvert, it's going to actually damage some of that. And I think that pipe is a plastic pipe. That's not a concrete pipe.
Is that part of the part of his property, or is it
The right of way is not his property.
Okay.
It's outside his fence, right into the road, in right over the top of the pipe. So in other words, it's if his driveway's coming in here, to the left was the basketball court.
So the cost will be on him if he breaks anything.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Now,
When
when they play, they actually move the hoop to the middle of the road at the end of the road, and that's really Mr. Chetty's issue because then he has a hard time
There's a lot of
backing
streets
out.
out here, though. People do that.
Yep.
Same thing.
There's three in the short.
I know it's
So the question is this a police action? Is it code enforcement from the city of Benita, or is it something we have to be involved in? If it's not permanently affixed
it's
in
not.
our ditch area, then every time a person parks a car at the shoulder of the road and a neighbor calls us and says there's a car parked there, one can surmise from that the car might cause damage depending on what time of year it is, whether it's soft or whether it's hard. I would try to suggest to Mr. Chetty that if he wants, this is a personal battle between these people. If they're trying to make it our problem. And I would suggest that maybe if the board wanted to take any action on it, they might send a letter to the homeowner that if they're going to leave unattended the basketball ring, they move it onto their property, not into the ditch. I don't know what else we should do with that.
When I inspected it, I saw it in this culvert. I also saw it in his driveway.
I've seen it both.
Yeah, typically this only happens 2 or 3 weeks during the Christmas break when he has family that comes down, these teenage boys, and they play basketball. And then the hoop disappears into the caverns of his
And
property.
next year they might be grown up and gone.
So that's the basketball hoop. The other issue that he has is the fact that he continues to mow the right of way in front of his property. And because Mr. Pringle sent him a letter when he first started that said it's a felony if you touch a blade of grass. He's very upset that this guy continues to mow, and the problem that we have is that he mows it too short. We don't really care that he mows it because I mow my swale and you mow your swale.
I know all of mine. So.
But that he mows it too short. Ron, you were going to go take a look at it and see if there's what you thought.
Can we just have somebody sending a letter as to how high we would like the grass to be?
We told him that last year.
Did we tell him verbally or did we send him a letter?
We verbally told him.
Let's send him a letter just instructing him on what the board suggests the height of the grass to be, and let's see if maybe we can resolve this on maybe a more...
The problem that I have with that is he's already threatening discrimination.
You're talking about Mr. Chetty.
Mr. Chetty, that we are discriminating against him by the sending of that initial letter. If we send Mr. Castro a letter saying he can mow, but don't mow it any shorter than 4 inches. So I don't know that we want to do that.
We're not going to have Mr. Pringle send the letter.
No.
I sent Mr. Castro, my recollection is I sent Mr. Castro a letter before I sent Mr. Chetty a letter.
But there was a driveway issue.
because Mr. Castor had allegedly created a second driveway without a permit.
Right.
And I told Mr. Castor if he was going to have a second driveway, he needed to have a second driveway permit. So really, I don't, to send Mr. Castor a letter that says, please remember, and I think I told him this before, please remember, you can only do anything, touch anything in the district right of way if you have the district's permission, is it, which covers you can't drive across the district right of way to gain access to your property other than on your permitted driveway, and you're not supposed to mow it and that stuff and then be done with it.
Okay, so is he still driving to the back on that property?
Not that I can tell, but
Okay,
according to
so-
Mr. Chetty, it's hard to.
Mike can probably answer that question.
If I may.
Just don't take too long.
I got to listen to these two guys for a couple hours, so. Anyway.
Did we pay you during that period of time?
I think, yeah. And I'm gonna have.
Overtime, no, you did.
But anyway, I think maybe you'd resolve the problem if you sent Mr. Chetty a letter allowing him to mow his yard in front. His problem was the fact that he wanted to put grass there at one time and put some chairs or benches out there. And for some reason, the board at the time
No, that was
didn't approve
something.
that.
It was something totally different than that. But that's what's in his mind.
But there's no swells in that area. It's not like there's a defined cut up and down. I mean, when it gets to there, the road and the perimeter to the road, it's just all one flat
It's flat
area.
area.
So no one's messing with a swell or interfering with the swell.
Both, Mr. Chairman, if I may,
You may.
both of the property owners, Mr. Castor and Mr. Chetty, received a letter from me. And they were both very similar in tone.
Sorry.
And I told both of them, you can only use the right of way as authorized by the district, and you're not supposed to do anything with it except your driveway as permitted, and that's all.
Okay, well, I
And
guess
so they both got treated the same. There's no
we
discrimination.
probably covered enough of this, but it's almost to the point you want to cry or laugh, I don't know which, over these two guys. If that's the only thing they've got going on with their life,
Sure.
they're pretty well off.
Well, so if Mr. Castor drives his boat and truck as his truck and boat trailer across the right of way someplace other than his designated district approved right of way connection point driveway, then he's maybe committed a felony.
Okay, may I make a suggestion?
That's all he needs to know.
Okay,
Yeah, I treat them all the same. I'm
Okay.
nice to everybody.
most everybody. Anyway, with all due respect to this very same thing, why don't we try to just simplify it? Mike has added some additional reflector signs which widen the base we have, trying to keep people from passing through. Why don't we add 2 of the 298 signs, which we have in this around the subdivision,
Down there.
1 on each side, spacing it out so a car can't get past it.
There you go.
And saying that it's a felony if you're, the signs outline about the water management.
Wait, but what's the felony you're threatening people? I'm confused.
Would you like to explain that?
No, sir. I would rather
It's
not.
on all the listen.
It's on-
It's
it's
on
on
all
all
the signs
signs
out
out
here. It's not new. It's on the signs coming in right next to your property. It's on the first stop sign on the 4-way stop.
And
It's
the
been
entrance
there
of every
since
lake.
I moved out here.
It's related to
If you mess
trespass.
with, if you're messing with the water management district's property,
So Jim,
it's been there all this time, and I'm not trying to be anything other than that. It's there. It's been there.
We just have
Yes.
to say it.
I did ask Mike to purchase one of the 298 signs, and he was going to install it as soon as he got it. And so maybe instead of having 2 of those, we have 1 of those and maybe a no dumping sign, and then we'd be done with it.
Either way, the objective was to create more of a roadblock.
Right. So I think we have done everything we need to do, and we can just not respond to,
Just leave it.
just let it,
As long as we keep responding to it, it's gonna keep coming.
yeah.
And we're spending a lot of time and a lot of meetings dealing with those two people who are just fighting amongst themselves.
Well, don't worry. I
Yes,
have a question. On Dietz Drive, as you come around the corner, there's multiple loads of sand.
Oh, that we just got there. I was gonna tell Ron about that.
Okay.
Thank you.
You know that you know the people.
Yep.
Why don't you call those people and tell them to move that sand?
And don't
We'll
tear
get Ron
the
to write
swales
the
up,
letter.
Okay, we'll have Ron write him a letter.
because it's
It's if we get rain, it's gonna be a problem.
big.
It's right at the corner.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll go over there and take a look also.
It's blocking the swale. It's in the
Okay.
swale.
Sand in the swale.
See, now you guys got me doing something else.
Okay.
Okay, next.
All right. So, Rocky Road issues. We're gonna put up the 298 sign. We're gonna put up a no dumping sign, and we're done.
And Mr. Nagy's the one that had us start doing the new dumping signs. So we do have one down near your neighborhood.
It's right past your house. On your way home to Catskill, you'll see the sign.
Mike was trying to find a place to put it because the ground was so hard. So he put it at the entrance way sign. You want to explain to him where it's at, Mike?
Oh, it's just in the, what sign is it? No end,
No outlet.
no outlet, there you go. It's on, I just put it right on the no outlet sign.
The no littering sign.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So, approve the December meeting minutes.
Motion to approve the December 19, 2022 regular meeting minutes.
Is there a second?
You want to second that?
I second the motion.
Aye.
Anyways.
We'll tell you what it was later.
Okay. So now we have the approved the December 2022 bank statements, financial reports, the January 2023 bills, and financial reports.
A motion to approve the December 2022 bank statements and financial reports, January 2023 bills and financial reports.
Second the motion.
Aye. Motion carried.
Now we have public input.
Public input?
Public input? We've been hearing from you all evening. What else you got to say?
If I'm riding my mini bike down
None.
there.
Closing public input.
No public input, we're moving on to supervisor discussion, and I believe at this point,
Mr. Chair,
hold on. Yes.
I'd like to be alone with the public for a moment. Something I should have mentioned earlier on
Yes.
was I had received a copy from Chris of a proposed rulemaking effort for the South Florida Water Management District. They were doing an amendment to 40E 7-7.700 of the administrative code. And it's, in my review of it, it's specific to works of the district that were part of the Central and South Florida Flood Control District.
Sure.
To the best of my knowledge, the only works of the district in Lee County is the C-43 canal, which is also known locally as the Caloosahatchee River. I do know that in recent years, the Lee County has, the district, South Florida district has taken over maintenance responsibility of some local creeks. But whether or not those are works of the district, I would highly doubt it. I think we may have to get the attorney to opine on that issue. But in my discussions with the county staff as to what the limits of those works or those natural channels that the district took over from the county, they're not even defined as to the real extent of how far upstream those channels does the county or does the water management district maintain. That's an undefined issue. So
The question at hand, though, is that them just want to govern our system, or does it mean they want to give us some money to maintain our system?
No.
the issue appears to me to be to deal with other districts that discharge mass quantities of debris and nonsense out into the South Florida's backbone district or backbone system. You've got, particularly the middle of Hendry and over in the western part of Palm Beach County, you've got any number of 298 districts and other special districts.
I'm aware of
that do discharge substantial amounts of water
into the Caloosahatchee.
into the Caloosahatchee.
Into
and
a
other
canal.
parts of the district.
Yes, into a canal that discharges into the Caloosahatchee. So that's what they're after.
or even the,
Okay.
not just limited to C-43, but C-109, all the canals, the North New River Canal, Miami Canal, all the works of the district.
But they're looking to control all of the outside sources dumping into their systems.
They're looking for you to have a plan so that one, doesn't happen, and two, have a hammer that they can come bang you over the head with at $15,000 a day if it does happen.
Okay, the question I'm gonna go back to a little bit further, okay? The same thing I've been saying. If we're coming under those guidelines, then the outside sources dumping into us ought to be in those guidelines also. Therefore, funding from them to fund ours ought to be something forthcoming with that being
Where are you
done.
going to get it from?
I don't disagree with that logic whatsoever, but I do not believe that we fall under those guidelines.
But if we do, it should give us a little muscle to get the outside people to be paid.
I seriously
I believe
doubt
that's
it.
why you did your drainage project to start with. They were telling us we're gonna find us $10,000 a day back before they paved the roads out there.
You're
We
talking
found
about
out that was a bunch of BS.
1956 through 1982.
That's the
So
stuff.
right when we came up with the road paving project, they were telling us they were gonna find us $10,000 a day.
Yeah, I was reading that earlier today.
But we found out that wasn't true.
The $10,000 a day is a statutory maximum that they can fine you for violation of Chapter 373, which is the Water Management Code in the Florida statutes, and it's the limit to which they can come after you.
Well,
So,
they're,
Ron-
they're making proposed changes in this proposed draft. Now they want to make it $15,000.
But
So-
again,
Inflation.
that's specific to Central and South Florida Flood Control District, works of the district, of which there are none in this neighborhood.
So, Ron, what you're saying is we do not need to come up with a plan? Okay. And
I will continue, I would like to, permission, if you will, to contact West Palm Beach to get clarification on that, assurance on that, so
Absolutely.
I will follow up with.
When you're speaking with these people, because I spoke with them over there many times, and Mr. Flood is the gentleman here in Lee County that represents West Palm. So, talk to them about funding for these outside sources that are dumping into our system. Make them aware of it.
I can do that.
Thank you, sir.
Ron, I also sent you an email earlier this past weekend or so about, I found a 2009 water control plan. I haven't found,
2005.
I have a 2005, I have a 2009. I haven't found anything subsequent to that.
Okay.
And I didn't know if you received anything from Morris
I have
Depew
not.
about that. And are we required to come up with a new plan every 5 years?
Updated, that's part of the MS4 program?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay, so there should be one, there should be a 2014, a 2019 updated plan then.
To the extent that anything, circumstances have changed, you need to update it. And you should probably pick it up, dust it off, make sure, put some fresh ink on it and republish the prior one.
All right, so is that something maybe you can get with Morris Depew and see if they have, it could be that they've done it and we just don't have a record of it.
Well, let me look into that with Morris Depew and see if they have that in their archives. Certainly they should have a 14 or a 19, something
Okay,
along that.
and I'll send you the 2009.
Okay.
Okay. Any others? Are you done?
Yes, sir, I'm sorry. Thank you. I apologize. I thought you were missing no. The rest of the
Okay.
public.
12, supervisor discussion, and I believe Mr. Pringle, or did you still have something you wanted to discuss?
No, so we talked about it earlier.
Okay.
See what you went and did? Harold's been waiting all evening to hear it.
We're done.
Okay. Anybody have anything else? We've sort of been doing supervisor discussion. This time was really set aside for the supervisors to discuss anything they want to talk about really amongst themselves up here at the end of every meeting, so that if we have things we want to talk about, we can just be very open and just have basically a coffee time or whatever, okay? Yes.
Yeah, it's on our agreement to go with, gatekeepers, okay, they have something that we need to sign.
Okay, why don't you just bring it up here in a minute?
The reason why I was, we need to say something, is we needed to modify it just a little bit to do a 50% down, 50% at completion. They had some other terms on it.
I understand.
So
That still comes under the emergency hurricane thing, so therefore, it does not require the board to make a decision on it.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know before we close.
That's why I'm saying that.
Okay.
And thank you for getting in on that before. Did you have a
Too
question?
late for comment. What's going on with the split rail up there? Somebody keeps knocking more and more of that down, or just get?
Oh, the
Every
issue
time I drive
happened.
by, it's-
Okay. That actually occurred during the hurricane for the most part. We've asked several times, we do have some additional planks. We would buy more of the planks. We were sort of hoping we'd get maybe a neighborhood group of people together, like you might, to go out and pick up trash once in a while or something. And this is what I said earlier. We have people who started doing Halloween events, people who are doing Christmas events. And maybe, this is a small community. It's our community. And from my point of view, the more we take care of ourselves, the less we have to pay Tony. But no, in all due respect, it's our neighborhood. And if we could get people to just once in a while say, hey, let's have a Saturday morning and a bunch of men and women get together and come up there and dig a couple holes and straighten up a few of those, that would be nice. If it doesn't happen, we'll contract it out and pay to have it done.
Do it before it gets hot, you're gonna get anybody volunteer.
Yeah.
Committee member number one? Anything else? Okay.
So did you adjourn the meeting?
You need to adjourn the meeting, sir.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Aye. Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned. Now I need to initial all these when you're done.